Today on Locked On Red Wings, Moritz Seider has been dominating, but is that what was expected? We begin our mid-season evaluations of the Detroit Red Wings.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can get us wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And if you'd like to listen to us ad-free, just head on over to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer and subscribe to our Everydayer Club. You get those episodes ad-free, as well as access to an exclusive Discord server in which you can chat with others and us. Scotty, we are officially into our Olympic/All-Star break. It's that time of the year where the teams stop playing and we get a reprieve from Red Wings hockey. Now, normally this comes a little bit earlier in the season, at least games played-wise. So it's our mid-season reviews, but they've played like 58 games, and it's more like two-thirds. But a lot of that has to do with how big of the break is because of the Olympic break, causing the schedule to be a lot more condensed. So we're going to do our mid-season evaluations. I know it's a little later than middle of the season, but it's the first time we've had. Should be a three-part series, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, leading right into the first men's Olympic qualifying game, men's Olympic preliminary game, and then we can start talking men's Olympic hockey, which is going to be really exciting. Scotty, how was your weekend, man?
It was good. It was good. Honestly, just locked into the Olympics, and then we're recording this before the Super Bowl, but that'll be a fun one as well.
Do you have a rooting interest in that Super Bowl?
I do not.
No.
I'm rooting for my... Yeah.
I think I'm rooting for the Seahawks just because I like the Sam Darnold, story.
Sure.
But
I'm rooting for whatever FanDuel tells me to root for.
All right. Scotty, we're going to begin here, and we're going to begin with the guy that was on the thumbnail, Moritz Seider. He has been on an absolute tear this season, defensively speaking. He's been playing 25-plus minutes a night. We've seen him dominate nightly and on national television, whether it be the knocking over Easton Cowan to set up the overtime winner, the way he performed a couple nights ago against Colorado, where he shut down Nathan MacKinnon. He's getting a lot of attention league-wide about Norris candidacy, which is fantastic. His production is not terrible either this season. Not terrible is not even the right word to say. It's been pretty good. He's got 38 points in 58 games played. He's on pace to set a career high. The question here is, when we talk about what is expected for a player, is Moritz Seider dominating expected, or is he going above what we are expecting in that category?
Well, I mean, it's I guess a little tough with a guy that you have high expectations for, and then he continues to, flourish. Or I think he's gone even above what I was hoping for him out of this season. And that's not to say that we didn't have high expectations. We did, but I don't think going into the season, I was like, oh yeah, by the Olympic break, people are going to be talking about him in a top 3, even top 2. Norris conversation. So I think while he, again, had high expectations and the blue line was always going to completely revolve around him and his success and all of those things that that come with, Moritz Seider and everything that we knew going into the season, I would still think that he is above what was expected of him this year, and that's a beautiful thing.
I would tend to agree with you. We did expect him to come in and be one of the better defensemen in the NHL, but he's gone above that expectation and has elevated himself into that Norris conversations, which is something that we had always hoped for. But we didn't know if that was going to be possible, just also because of the inherent bias towards offense in the NHL. The fact that he's done it, and not to say his offense, 38 points, he's going to finish between 50 and 60 points this season, offensively speaking. He's going to be fine in that regard too, but it's not to the caliber of guys like Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Zach Werenski in terms of offense, that he's getting this much attention just purely based on his domination defensively is something to behold. And of course, everyone knows he plays power play 1, penalty kill 1. He blocks a lot of shots. He throws the body a lot. He is just a complete package defensively, and I think he has absolutely gone above and beyond even our already high expectations for him to start the season, the first 2/3 of the year. So I agree with you. I think he is going to be one of the few players we have in above and beyond expectations. It's been something that's been very exciting to watch. And, there's been a lot of articles written about how his impact on versus off the ice is massive. I don't know if the Red Wings are even in a position this favorable at this time of year without him on the ice. And he's going to go do it for Team Germany and try to thrust them to a medal game as well, probably playing 30-plus minutes a night like he did with Detroit against the Mammoth. So
probably.
But, Scotty, that's about, what else is there to say about a guy who we've been raving about all year long? Next up, just going in order of how I have them organized here, we're planning on getting through 7 guys, so we got to be a little bit brief. 7 guys each episode to get us through 21 roster players in 3 to get us to the Olympic Games on Wednesday. Next up, we got rookie Emmet Finny sitting right here. And this is a really intriguing conversation because I think there's an argument to be made here, Scotty, that just him being on the roster by the Olympic break is above expectations.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that for me, he isn't above expectations. And that's not to say that the production has sustained or been consistent throughout the season. Obviously, it hasn't, and his role has bounced around. On opening night, he was a top line left wing, and still, goes. They go back to the well and put him back up there sometimes if needed during the line carousel, if you will. But I think for the most part, you're getting a high energy depth forward that is willing to, do dirty work and go into the corner. He has a high motor and he's a good skater. And I think that all of those things still bring value, even if it hasn't led to a lot of points. The expectations for him going into the year were, I agree with you, I guess. Like just him being on the roster still, and not only being on the roster, but still getting penciled into the lineup in the top 9 pretty much every single night, I think is a testament to how the coaching staff still feels about him. And I think it's certainly more than we were expecting out of a 7th round pick that broke camp, going into the year.
Right. Obviously, he started the season on a tear, too. He's got 21 points in 58 games, which is not bad production whatsoever in the grand scheme of things. But you also have to keep in mind a lot of that production did come at the start of the season, and he's been struggling to find the stat sheet since. But that's when, like you said, just the fact that a 7th round pick from just a couple years ago is on the roster right now and still a nightly guy in the roster, that in its own is above expectations in my regard, in my opinion. And that's where when we talk about these, this is why we like to do mid-season evaluations like this, and we got away from the A, B, C, D, because every single player brings something different to the table. You don't grade and you don't evaluate a 4th-line player like you would a top-pair defenseman. So that's where it's like you see Emmet Finny in above expectations. That's not the same above expectations somebody like Moritz Seider is going to get. Like, if we were getting Moritz Seider on just being on the roster, 58 games, that's failing expectations if that's all he was doing, because the expectation for that player is different. Emmet Finny was a surprise. Him making the roster was already beating expectations for him. And not only was he beating expectations the first half of the season, he played on the top line. The first quarter of the season, he was actually producing very well on the top line. It's just, if his production has kind of fallen off, which is why you don't put him in above and beyond anymore, but just him still being here and a nightly player on the lineup is it's just something incredible to behold. So we got Moritz Seider in above and beyond expectations, and we got Emmet Finny in above expectations. Scotty, let's head to our first break, and when we return, who do we got next? Looks like we got Andrew Copp and Cam Talbot in segment 2, so stay tuned for that on Locked On Red Wings. Cold days, Cold days, packed schedules, and big goals, that's winter. And when there's not a lot of time to cook, eating well can feel like another thing to do on the to-do list. That's where Factor comes in. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without the planning, prepping, or cooking. Factor meals are always fresh, never frozen, and ready in about 2 minutes. The ingredients stand out: lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. Perfect for busy weeks when you still want meals that support your goals without the stress. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a whole year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan, one free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. All right, Scotty, next up on our tier list, man, that sun is beating you right now.
Dude, I have to get like blackout, curtains or something. It's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Were we just fighting over the background?
Yes, we
for
were.
A second there? Oh, okay. We were both trying to control it. All right, Scotty. I love this conversation too. This is what's nice about the Red Wings being in the position that they are, is there's a lot of interesting stories, and the season this late, especially this late in the season, has had a lot of ebbs and flows. And there's another player who's had highs and lows this year in Andrew Copp, who we're talking about next. This is a guy who was doing next to nothing in the bottom six for a large chunk of the season. But when they finally gave him a shot on line 2 as the center, after trying Marco Kasper there and JT Compher there, he began to flourish. And now he's on pace for his best season points-wise with the Detroit Red Wings. He's got 33 points in 58 games, points per game of .57. You see him on the penalty kill, obviously quite a lot. He's been pretty good. Now, he was hot for quite some time. The point production has dipped a little bit since he got hot, but that second line for a while was the Red Wings' best line, especially while Larkin and Raymond were struggling to produce at really any capacity. So, when you talk about Andrew Copp, what was the expectation going in versus what we've seen so far?
I think it's above expectations pretty comfortably. And obviously part of that is the point production. And as you mentioned, he's on pace to have one of his best point producing seasons as a Detroit Red Wing, if not his best. But I think that when we think back to what was expected of Andrew Copp going into the season, it was really just kind of repeat last year and be a guy that can win some faceoffs, be really good defensively, someone that you would absolutely be deploying in the defensive zone a lot of the time. If he can man center for the whole season, then beautiful. That was the expectation, was just for him to look like he did, especially in the second half of last year when he was, before the injury, when he was looking pretty darn good. And we have now gotten a full season of him still looking good defensively, still being a guy that they have no issue deploying in the defensive zone, a guy that has taken a lot of faceoffs and been really good in that regard, and also now is putting up his best point producing season as a wing. So I think that for me, this is really a slam dunk above expectations. He's not, he didn't turn into a first line guy, which is why I'm, you know what I mean? It's probably not above and beyond, but he certainly is I think pretty comfortably above what, people thought they were going to get out of Andrew Copp going into the year.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that one. He's been kind of almost clutch. Not clutch as in he's scoring big goals in big moments, but when the production dipped from your top line and they were honestly losing their minutes, I should say, when they were on the ice, the second line came up huge, and Andrew Copp was a driving force behind that because of his very strong defense. He's a 90th percentile defense overall, Scotty, amongst forwards. That's according to Evolving Hockey. A top 10% player defensively, which we've known, and he's always been good at that. But now finally this season, we are seeing the offense that you were hoping to see. And that's the only point in this conversation where I begin to well, is it technically above expectations if the first time in his tenure here he's meeting expectations?
Right.
Like, this is what the expectation was when they signed him. But it's also, year 4 of Andrew Copp?
Yeah.
And over the course of his contract, the expectation for him did come down a little bit. So I'm comfortable putting him in above expectations for how he's been performing this season. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is what we should have been getting the last few years. But I also understand that he was asked to play a very hard defensive role under Derek Lalonde, and this is the first time under a new head coach where he's been put in a position to succeed offensively. But I'm okay putting him in above expectations offensive just because his point productions, it's been there. It's been good. So yeah, I'm comfortable with that as well. Next up on our tier maker, because we're doing this list on tier maker, and when we're done with this, I'll tweet out the link and you guys can do your own tier list if you'd like. We got backup goaltender Cam Talbot, and I think this is a slam dunk meeting expectations.
I would agree. Yeah, I think he's been exactly what we thought he was going to be, and he's been fine. He's been serviceable in a backup role. He hasn't been a train wreck. He also hasn't been fighting certainly Gibson for playing time or anything like that. But I think that it's weird to have this conversation in a vacuum because it's almost impossible to have the conversation of, what has Talbot given you this year without mentioning that he has been in a much more Cam Talbot friendly role because of how often John Gibson has been playing and how good John Gibson has been, right? That was a big conversation going into the year, was like if Talbot can be a true backup and not have to play, 2+ times a week, then he can flourish and he can be a fine NHL goaltender still at this point in his career. But the second that you have to start leaning on him like they did last year, you're going to burn him out. And I think that, yes, he has been meeting expectations, but he deserves the credit. He's the one in net, but it is a lot, I would feel like, to do with the fact that John Gibson has been so good that it's allowed Talbot to finally play the amount that we kind of hoped he would going into really his Red Wings tenure, but certainly this season.
And this is where the debate comes in, because everyone's personal expectations of a player are different. Obviously, these are our expectations, and our expectations was John Gibson needs to be your 1A, if not your outright starter, bare minimum, which means Cam Talbot's going to see a reduction in games played. He's seen a reduction in games played. He played 47 last year, and right now he's only played, I think, 24 this season. He's got a save percentage of, I think, .892, which is below league average, but not really all by that much. As, again, the league average save percentage has come down another year. But we wanted a 38-year-old goaltender to be the backup. And more often than not, in nights that he plays, he does enough to give the Red Wings an opportunity to win hockey games. There was a stretch at the start of the season where he was actually coming up huge for the Red Wings because John Gibson struggled. So Talbot was actually getting a lot of starts to start the year, and he started the year strong again until, again, they played him too much, and he had a few rough games. But, I mean, since then, we expected him to be the 1B/backup, and he's been a serviceable 1B/backup. So it's really hard to be overly critical of Cam Talbot's performance so far this season.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Scotty, we got a little bit of time, so let's squeeze in one more. Since we are trying to do an odd number this episode, we got time. Let's do one more here. Next up, we got Jacob Bernard Docker. This is a guy that the Red Wings signed, was not qualified by Buffalo after he was traded from Ottawa to Buffalo as part of that Josh Norris and Dylan Cousins deal. And a lot of fans in both Buffalo and Ottawa were surprised they did not qualify him and let him his rights expire and become a UFA, because they saw a lot of potential in this guy as an offensive defenseman. With the Red Wings, he has been in the lineup more often than not. He's the 6th defenseman, rotating occasionally with Travis Hamonic when Simon Edvinsson has gone down. Now we've seen him on the top pair with Moritz Seider, which I thought, given the expectations, he's done a fine enough job. But it was really hard to know where our expectations for JBD were. So it's hard to decide where to put him on this list.
Yeah, I'm kind of just going back and forth between meeting or below. It's really tough because the blue line, we've said all season that like the blue line needs to be addressed. They need to improve in that regard, et cetera, et cetera. And he is a reason for that. Like when, that third pair that he was a part of for a lot of the first half of the season was really brutal, and he was a part of that. But how high were expectations for a guy, again, that was let go by his previous team, that the Wings just kind of picked up as another, defensive depth option. So I don't know. I could really be pretty easily convinced either way between meeting and below, but I think ultimately, like, this is a guy that did not have super high expectations going into his Red Wings tenure and has not certainly surpassed them.
Yeah, it's difficult because, like you said, the expectations were very mild, to put it best, to begin with. And there was definitely a discrepancy between what fans saw versus what obviously teams saw. He was let go by Buffalo as an RFA, essentially. We knew he would be coming in here and probably be a third-pair defenseman, and he has been a third-pair defenseman. I think maybe we expected him to do a little bit better, and he's picked his game up the last stretch here. But, I mean, the large portion of the start of the season, that third pair was borderline unplayable. So I do think you still put him in below expectations, although he's picked his game up recently. But it's just like, I could be convinced meeting or below. But I just think right now maybe that's too harsh. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other towards JBD, but that third pair is just not doing enough quite yet.
I'm with it. I'm fine with that.
All right, Scotty, let's head to another quick break. When we return, we'll finish up the part one of our midseason evaluations. We got James Van Riemsdyk, who's a nice story, along with Michael Rasmussen, another player who's had some highs and lows this season. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire somebody for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just resume buzzwords. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listings stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored job posts boost your posts to help people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more result using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support this show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed.
Indeed, you should.
Sure. Scotty, 2 more guys to cover in this episode. Next up is James Van Riemsdyk, who was on just an absolute heater in the middle of the year. He is, 4th on the team in goals with 25 points in 49 games played. He is, I think he's been as advertised, to be fair.
I would put him in above.
You would put him in above. I mean, we knew we were getting an elite net front presence when they signed James Van Riemsdyk, because that's what he's always been. He did go on that absolute heater, and he provided the only depth scoring this team needed. I would agree. I think above is probably the right spot, because, I mean, you look at last year, his goal totals last few years have been 16, 11, 12. He had 24 in 2022. He's got 14 already in 49 games played. Like, he's going to have his best goal total since 2022. So I think above is the right spot to be. But, I mean, he has been exactly what the Red Wings signed him to do, which is get to the net front and bury that puck with your nice hands in tight. He's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, I mean, it's a slam dunk for above, and that's not to say that, I mean, as you put, we didn't know what we were getting in terms of role. That certainly was what the Wings signed him to be, and he has been that. But, I mean, the clip that he is on right now is, I think, pretty comfortably a step above what was expected of him going into the year, especially – I don't know if this is like cheating or not, but I mean, especially given that he missed camp and they were like, oh, we're going to like slowly ramp him up and everything like that. Like he didn't even, hit the ground running in terms of like, oh, on opening night, he was just like doing this. Like he had to kind of get worked back into the fold a little bit for a fair reason, the birth of his children, obviously be there for your family. But it was just, one of those things where he maybe started a little bit later than some of the other guys and still is on pace for one of his best goal scoring seasons in almost half a decade. So, yeah, I think that it's pretty comfortably above for me.
Yeah, in his first 17 games of the season, Scott, he had just 2 points. He started, like you noted just now, he started the season very slow without the training camp. He actually scored in his Red Wings debut against the Leafs, but then it was just like nothing besides 1 assist up until game 18. And game 18 to game 43, this is his 18th game to his 43rd game, he had 21 points in 26 games played. 13 goals, 8 assists. Like, he went on an absolute heater with showing off hands in tight. And Hockey IQ, honestly, he had some really beautiful assists. Like, think about the assist to Dylan Larkin to tie the game late against the Dallas Stars. He has been so important for the Red Wings' power play scoring and the depth scoring as well, because he's the only player in the bottom 6 who's really contributing on a semi-consistent basis. Now, he has cooled off a little bit since then. He had 1 assist in the game against Utah, but that was the first point in like 5 or 6 games for him. But I mean, you shouldn't be leaning on a 36-year-old to be your best depth scorer at this point in a rebuild to begin with. So he has certainly been above expectations, like giving us what we wanted and a little bit more with how proficient he's been at it. And that brings us to our final player here on part 1 of our midseason evaluations, and that's Michael Rasmussen. Michael Rasmussen so far, Scotty, has 14 points in 53 games. He started the season ice cold, man, just absolutely frozen to a point where he was getting healthy scratched. But then he came back from his healthy scratch, and he looked like it lit a fire underneath him, and he was, while still not producing a ton, he's never been a huge point producer. He was impacting the game on a nightly basis with his incredible forecheck, and that bottom 6 lines, whatever he was on, whether it be with JVR or Mason Appleton, they don't score a lot, but they do tend to grind out possession in the offensive zone. So, like, where do you rank a guy like Michael Rasmussen?
Yeah, it's a little tough just because, as you mentioned, you can kind of not cut the season so far in half necessarily, but you can pick like a pretty distinct before and after point on his level of play. I would still put him in meeting. I think that he's been, like, going into the season, you kind of expect him to be the last couple of years, really, it's been a similar expectation. We want you to be a depth producer, obviously not going to be a big point producer, but a guy that, again, is deployed a lot in the defensive zone, is somebody that can really, I guess, play all situations. They've tried him as a net front in certain situations as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been, like, setting the world on fire, as you mentioned, point production-wise or anything. But I think that he is filling his role and what his expected role on the team was going to be going into the year. So that's kind of where I have him.
I see where you're coming from. I would actually still put him in below, just for the simple fact that he's just still been so inconsistent. Like, there are games where you're like, oh my goodness, like, this is a guy who can really dominate offensively, physically, not point production wise, but can use his size to protect the puck, wear down opponents, and then gain momentum for the next line coming out. Because that's really what they do. He and his line will get in the offensive zone. They'll basically just cycle the puck up and down the boards because they really struggle to get the puck to the net.
Yeah.
But they grind out possession. They wear down their opponents. They maintain possession, then pass the baton to the next line coming out, who can then capitalize on the tired defense. But the problem is he's still so inconsistent. You don't know which Michael Rasmussen you're going to get on a night in and night out basis. And sometimes he just you don't even notice that he played. So I'm totally
fine with below. I really am. I have no rebuttal or hesitation with that. I'm surprised that I have him higher rated than you do.
It's been a long time since I was on my Michael Rasmussen hype train.
Yes,
it's been quite a few years. There was that season, man, before his season-ending injury. He was, the best for Michael Rasmussen. Yeah. He was on pace for like 40 points that season. Yeah. I was so pumped for that because I like you players
too,
who people. I like you too. Thank you. I like players who people doubt. It's why, again, going back to the start of the episode, I'm kind of rooting a little bit for the Seahawks because people doubted Sam Darnold, and he's turned his career around very nicely. Also, he's a game manager like Jared Goff, so if he wins a Super Bowl, that would kind of prove that Goff can too with the Lions, but I digress. So when Michael Rasmussen was playing really well, I was really happy, and I was excited for that, and I was pumping up his tires because I like players that people doubt. But this season, he has just been a bottom six forward at best. So
I'm with it.
That does it. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm excited to do this. This is obviously something we do every year at the whatever break. The last 3 years, we've had 3 different midseason breaks between All-Star, Four Nations, and now Olympic. But we always do this at the break every year, and I feel like in the last couple of years we've had most of the people on the team residing in either meeting or even below. There was one year I distinctly remember we had 60% of the team in below, and I feel like just with how well the team has played this year, that this might be the first year where a majority of the roster is in above expectation. So I'm kind of excited to just get the layout in that perspective. But we ball.
Absolutely. We do ball. We'll be back with part 2 tomorrow. And just as a recap, Moritz Seider above and beyond. Emmet, Finny, Andrew Copp, and JVR are above our expectations of him to start the season. Cam Talbot is meeting our expectations of him to start the season. And JBD and Michael Rasmussen are just below our expectations for them to begin the season. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, continuing this process. So stay tuned. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.